Sentire Media.
Ciao a tutti and welcome to Venice Talks, a podcast series dedicated to Venice in Italy. I'm your host, Monica Cesarato, a Venetian food and travel blogger. Join me as I share my insider knowledge to help you explore Venice at 360 degrees. In this weekly podcast, we'll dive into the heart of a city, uncovering hidden stories and connecting with the people who make Venice unique. The artisans, the writers, the fashion designers, the bloggers, the journalists, and more. Let's break free from cliché and discover the true essence of Venice, not just the monuments, but the vibrant people, the Venetians. Experience Venice the right sustainable way. You can find me on my blog at www.monicacesarato.com and across all social media platforms. Enjoy the episode and let's journey through Venice together. Welcome back to Venice Talks, Season 2, Episode 28. Hi everybody and thank you for listening to Venice Talks. As promised, I will be featuring one of you on each episode, giving us tips on what to do and where to go in Venice. Don't forget, if you want to be featured on the episode, just send me a quick audio file of 1 minute to 2 minutes maximum via WhatsApp or via email at info@monicacesarato.com. Today, we are going to listen from the tips of Karen Cassidy.
Hi, Monica. This is Karen Cassidy. Thank you so much for introducing me to Alessia Fuga, the wonderful glass bead artisan on Murano. And I enjoyed so much having a chance to make my own glass bead and then spending the day with you, visiting the Glass Museum, going to lunch in a beautiful little restaurant garden there on the island. I have been visiting Venice for years and Murano as well. But on Murano, I had never really stepped off the tourist path until that experience with you. And I just want to thank you for sharing that with me and helping me to see Murano that I had not seen before and to really have such a beautiful, intimate, immersive, hands-on experience. It was very special.
Thank you so much, Karen, for your wonderful words and for your insight. And now let's crack on with a new episode. Hi, everybody, and finally, welcome back to Venice Talks. I know it's been a while. We finally found somebody so kind that decided to come on the show and talk to us. And it is my dear friend, Professor Luca Zaggia from the Geoscience and Earth Resources Institute for CNR. Did I say right? Look, it's so long.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello, Monica.
Did I say correct or was it wrong?
Yes, everything was perfect. Institute of Geosciences and Earth Resources of the National Research Council of Italy. Yeah.
Oh la la, it's such a long thing.
It comes easier for me because it's every time I have to introduce myself.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Okay, so since it's so long, let's explain a little bit. What is the CNR? What is your institute? And about your background?
Well, the National Research Council of Italy was founded on 1922 by Guglielmo Marconi, nothing less than the popular Guglielmo Marconi. Yeah, he was the president when the country decided to have a coordination of researchers among universities, but also non-academic researchers. They founded CNR, the National Research Council of Italy, that sponsor and grant researchers, but also has its own research infrastructures. There are thousands of people working for CNR in Italy, and
yes, we actually already interviewed one of your colleagues about that goes around on the Arctic Pole, and
nice,
a few episodes ago.
I think I know the person. Yeah. Well, we have several disciplines, and most of the institutes are multidisciplinary actually. So we work on several issues, and before I passed to for the Institute of Geosciences and Georisorses, I was working in Venice for more than 30 years to the Institute of Marine Sciences, which is under the same flag. I recently moved to Padova for logistics, but I still work a lot on the Lagoon of Venice, and most of my researches are related to the impacts of human activities on the morphology of the environment. You know, the morphology of the Lagoon of Venice is extremely important because that drives the whole ecosystem. So hydrodynamics, I mean the tide and the exchanges with the sea, the rivers, and the morphology are the most important drivers of the ecosystem. And so,
Well, what sparked your interest in researching Venice and its unique environment then?
do you mean which is the most?
No. What sparked your personal interest? How did you get into this?
Oh, I did. Well, since I was young, I wanted to become a marine scientist. I decided, I mean, I had two options, becoming an architect or
Still, Venice would have been
yes,
online with. Yeah,
it could have been the subject of my professional activity anyway. Yes, and but I loved the sea. I still love it, and for me, it's a more I couldn't live without the sea. So,
And so you started and you got into
well,
that.
that was a friend. She suggested me just buy a beer to decide what was better for my heart and what
Wow, that's so
you need
cool.
for. Yeah. And so I decided for the sea, but it wasn't easy because in Padova there is no. When you study geology, I wanted to do marine geology because I am a geologist. In Padova, there is no there wasn't an official address into marine sciences. I had to move to Bologna, but it was difficult, and I decided to stay in Padova. So it was a slow movement from the mountains to the rivers. I got some grants on after my diploma. I got some grants on fluvial geomorphology, and finally from the rivers to the lagoon, and from the lagoon to the sea. And not too much into the sea because I'm limited to coastal seas, which are still the focus of my career. But it's okay, you also need coastal geomorphologists.
Of course. Above all, well, for Venice, above all, and nowadays.
Yeah, and most of the problems
above
we
all,
are going to have in the future for the oceans are
is to do with the
impacting on
coast.
the coast. So that's the most
Exactly.
critical point. And it's good to have people engaged in such kind of researches. Yeah.
So let's go back to Venice. Venice
Yeah.
is often described as a fragile city. We know, we just saying the the obvious, okay. But what are the key environmental challenges it faces today?
Oh, well, of course, sea level rise is the most important, and we know that sea level rise is an issue for Venice since 1966. When Venice found that it was vulnerable after centuries of dominating the seas. We have a problem with local subsidence, which is the sinking of the soil. It's not just Venice that is sinking, it's all the soil around Venice. The whole lagoon is an estuary, and it has a lot of soft sediments that are compacting quite fast. I'd say 1.5 millimeter per year, but when it was the time when the industrial zone was built in Venice, they were exploiting coastal aquifers more than they should have done. And so there was also an anthropogenic subsidence created by the extraction of groundwater from these coastal aquifers, which was one order of magnitude more than the natural subsidence.
So we actually made the phenomenon faster than it would have been.
Exactly. Man accelerated the processes. And when you look at the palaces in Venice and you see the staircases in old paintings, for example, Guardi or Canaletto, you see that all these features of the architectural heritage of the city were outside of the water. Today, they are under the water permanently.
Well, yeah, you quickly see that when if you're lucky enough to see Venice on a low tide rather than a high tide, and you see all the steps, like a 3-4 steps right under the water, and you think, and I know people usually say, why would they have built the steps under the water?
They would have been stupid to be under the water.
They weren't under the water. That's the point.
They were out of the water most of the time. And this is a slow process. So that's the change occurred in, say, 250 years. When we
Mm-hmm.
talk about maybe a little more, when we talk about Canaletto and Guardi. But um, and that's more than a meter, and a meter and a half maybe. But
Mm-hmm.
when it's about the man-induced subsidence, that will be 25 centimeters, 10 inches just in a century, which is
That's a lot.
actually less than a century, because we
Yeah.
calculate the total since the time they started until today. Well, 1922, 2024 is a century, but most of the changes occurred in the first 50 years. Then in 1970, when my institute was opened in Venice, the geologists immediately realized that the problem was groundwater extraction. Groundwater
Uh-huh.
extraction was banned in the whole perimeter of the lagoon.
Okay.
But for the environment, it takes a few decades in
Uh-huh.
order to stop a process that was initiated because of the inertia of the system.
Of course.
We never take into account the inertia of the system. And of course, the same is for global warming, which is
Mm-hmm.
the cause of the increasing sea level. The warming of the planet is something that even if we stop completely today, the burning fuels, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or making wars or whatever, that would be at least 3 decades before you can see the results of the actions you
Wow.
took.
Wow. And there was another thing that you talked to me about. I remember on the first time I met you years and years ago, that you had this beautiful walk in Venice, explaining about the the damages and stuff. You also were explaining to me the problem of the buildings that are literally soaking up the salty water, and then when it dries, the crystal kind of disintegrate
Yeah.
the bricks. This is not really explained very often. What is this phenomenon then?
Well, this is what we call haloclastesis.
Oh la
So
la,
it's from
that's
a Greek
a very
from
hard
a
word.
Greek word. It's a technical word, but it's from the Greek.
Mm,
It's the breaking of the salt.
okay,
It's very similar to cryoclastasis, which is the breaking of the rocks from the ice.
okay.
The water, in particular, the seawater can seep into the masonry of the buildings, and at the surface, on the upper levels, that doesn't happen in the saturated part of the building, which is the foundation. The
Mm,
foundation is always underwater, so it is always saturated. But where you have a change between wetting and drying,
mm.
especially during the alternance of the seasons, but also in wet days and in humid days and in
And
sunny days.
also maybe when they have the motorboats, an increase in motorboats in the
Well,
city.
that pumps more water into the foundation, right? The
Okay.
waves. But anyway, the masonry is has a porosity because there are empty spaces inside in the mortar, for example, or in the bricks. So they absorb moisture like
Mm.
seawater,
Like a sponge.
like a sponge. And when at the surface of the sponge you have the wetting and drying, so the salt gets solid
Mhm.
from dissolves, and by solidification it expands and creates a pressure within the bricks and the mortar that can make them crumbling, literally.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it is a superficial process that happens on both sides of the masonry, of the walls,
Uh-huh.
inside and outside, but doesn't occur so intensively inside. It's a superficial process that propagates inside slowly, and
Ah,
it's driven by the alternance of wetting and drying
okay.
of the masonry.
And that is why so many buildings in Venice look with this white kind of like a, powdery kind things.
Well,
And
you
if
can
you
see the
touch it,
salt.
and when you
Yeah.
touch them, they literally crumble on your hand.
Yeah, and you can, in some cases, like for example, when you go to the Magazzini del Sale,
Yes.
the salt buildings, there you see the salt,
Yeah.
really the salt at the surface. Also in Cadoro, I found crusts of
Oh.
salt on the surface of the wall. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. And is this a problem that can be fixed somehow? or of the many problems that Venice needs to deal with, is this one we could fix, in your opinion, or not?
It is a problem that we always need to work for fixing. It will continue forever because this is a long-term action of the increasing sea level. Once there were protections to prevent the seawater to seep into the building, but these protections were overcome by the increasing sea level. So the tide today is oscillating at a higher level than a century ago.
Of course.
And so it overcomes the protections and goes up into the masonry. Imagine the Venetians were shipbuilders. They knew how to make something impermeable for sure.
Of course.
So the wall was protected by a level of an impermeable stone, and there was also some tar on top of the foundation on a level that was safe from high tide. It was higher than the usual high tide level. But now the high tide level is much higher than it was,
of course,
centuries ago. So that permits to overcome the barrier, the original barrier, and so it's a problem that we always need to fix.
So
it takes a lot of money.
Of course, because we're not talking about one building, we're talking about hundreds of buildings in the city. Listen, the phenomenon of high water didn't just increase as in measurements, as in how high it goes, but it is more and more frequent. I think we can literally perceive it. It's not just studying, it's perceiving as a person. You can see that, a person that lives here, you see that is more frequent than, let's say, 20, 30 years ago. Let's touch the Mose. Is he actually working, in your opinion, in protecting Venice?
Last night, are you in Venice now?
No,
because last night...
Was he up yesterday? Okay.
The barriers were up last night.
Okay.
They started raising the barriers at midnight.
Okay.
And the peak of the tide, I guess it was around 3 or 4 something. And so the barriers were closed last night. And this is, I guess, the 85th operation of the barriers so far since October the 3rd, 2020.
Oh,
well, let me say, we expected initially, just basing on the historic time series of high tides in Venice, that the Mose should have worked 10 or 15 times a year. But now we are exactly 4 years after the start of the operations, and we are already at the 85th. So that means that the frequency is 21 on average per year, 21 high tides, floodings in 1 year.
I was speaking to the CEO the other day of the Mose. We were doing an interview with him, and he was telling me that when they originally forecasted every year how many times they would rise the Mose, he was telling me the first year it was supposed to be, they were planning to do it for 10 years, the second, and then it was gonna be 20 times per year, okay? And he clearly said to me, if we go more than that, there is a huge problem that the Mose cannot solve, because he said that we are protecting Venice, but we are not the solution. That's what he clearly said that. And it seems to me we're already on more than 20 now.
We are close to that. We are really close to the limit. And this is something that was not expected in the 80s, when the last stages of experiments were done and the final design of the project was started. So remember that the works started in 2004 and they were actually finished in 2020. So it's a long time. And in this long time period, things changed.
Yeah,
and that's the problem. When we decide, this is not only a Venetian problem, it's a problem everywhere.
I know.
When we start making a huge intervention on the coast to protect our cities, that the time we start and the time we finish, and the situation is already changed in the meantime. That's the real problem that we have. Our response to the changing environment is not so fast, not so efficient like it should be. But we have limits, of course. And every time you have to make a big master plan like this, you need, of course, to discuss it with the population and so on.
Money, you need money, you need study.
Well, money is not just the only issue. Of course, you have to convince people that this is worth to do.
Yeah. I mean, you go also to do all the study to make sure that it doesn't go and ruin any ecosystem, or, that you have to balance, the two things.
What Leonardo da Vinci said, when it's sad to say this, but this is the way it works. When Leonardo da Vinci, he said that if you want to govern the water, you need a dictator.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because you
That's
need
true.
to take decisions.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know that it's correct to control and have a participation of the public opinion on the processes and on the decisions, but we need to find ways to make this process faster.
Yeah.
Which still means that we need to involve the population. They have to be an active part in the process.
But look, I think also the population is the people, the normal people, need to go back to understand that sometimes you guys that study the problem know a little bit more than we do, and we should listen to you rather than just automatically go like oh blah, 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 as most of the people do. I mean, I understand that it's sometimes for us normal people it's hard to understand certain things, but I think we should go back to trust the scientists. Scientists been telling us for for decades that there was a problem with the environment, and we just didn't listen. And look now, so maybe we should go back to trust you guys a little bit since you study.
We can mention another historic fact. When Girolamo Sabbadino, this hydraulic engineer of the city of Chioggia, he was one of the advisors at the Magistrato alle Acque, the water authority in Venice in mid-1500, and he was talking to the city, to the government, like he was talking to a person. And he said, you see, Venice, how strong your walls were, and it means the water, because the water is the protection of Venice, that you need to take care of it. Because when you start doing something, taking actions, it will be too late because of this situation with the environment, that there is a delay in the response of the environment. Like we said before, he knew exactly that. If you make a change today, you will see the result in a few decades. So let's start acting now. That's what we said to the city. And this is the lesson we should take home for all the other coastal cities. We spend our time and our resources and money making wars, while the real enemy is not the neighboring country.
I know. Listen.
The real enemy is the changes of this planet that are happening. Doesn't matter if it's because of us or it's just because of normal cycles of the planet, but whatever it is, it's something we need to deal with.
We need to address. Unfortunately, we're not. Listen, the lagoon is a critical part of the Venice ecosystem. What makes it so unique, so different? I mean, it's part of UNESCO. Why is it so different from any other lagoon in the world?
This is a nice question, but I think what makes it nicer than other places is the presence of humans as part of the ecosystem. I mean, after centuries of living in the lagoon, the city became like a part of the ecosystem. Remember that it was built following the rules of the ecosystem.
Oh, yes.
It is flushed by the tide that permitted to have a sewage system that was the best ever centuries ago, of course. But when Venice was built, the other cities were stinky. And because just people were dumping the wastewaters into the streets. And now here we had a system that was automatically flushing at each high tide. So imagine this, they made a wonderful thing, but they built it following the rules of the environment. And now that after centuries of changing the lagoon for their own benefits, Venetians became a part of it. And if you let the lagoon go just following natural tendencies without controlling, at this point, the interrelationship is so intense that the lagoon doesn't go anywhere alone, and Venice doesn't go anywhere without the lagoon. There is an
Nice.
interesting movement in Venice to raise the attention on the environmental problems. They say Venezia è laguna, Venice
Mm-hmm.
is lagoon. At this
Mm-hmm.
point, it's not just the city, it's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel it. When you walk in Venice, did you ever feel that when it's low tide, the you feel a different energy than when it's high tide when you're walking in Venice? I
Mm.
feel that. I get
Yes.
off the train and I start walking in the city, and I feel something, and then I realize, oh, of course, it's low tide. And it's not
Yeah.
just the smell of the algae,
See, no, it's just yeah, it's a feeling. You
it's
are
a
right on that. Yeah,
physical feeling that you have. Once you are part of it, you really feel part of this ecosystem.
it's
And of
true.
course,
It's
you need
true.
to love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what are the most pressing threats to the biodiversity of a lagoon of Venice?
Sorry, I didn't get the first part.
The
What's the question?
most pressing threats.
Oh, well, alien species.
Oh, okay.
Alien
Yeah,
species.
you know what? I would never have would have thought you would have said something like this. Now
Well,
I'm very curious. Okay, and by alien, of course,
alien
we're
species
not
are
talking
terrible.
about ET.
Well, we have this blue crab, which could be a
I
magic opportunity
know.
for the fisheries and business
Yeah,
related
of
to
course.
fisheries. For your international audience, that might be strange, but here sometimes they are 50 cents a kilo, while elsewhere in the world they cost more than 10 or 20 euro a kilo, but
Yeah.
the equivalent at least
So
in
first of all, how did they get here?
here, with ballast water of the ships.
Ah,
Globalization in the trades also
okay,
brings global problems. And so
okay.
you're moving species and larvae just with ballast water of the ships, which should be controlled more strictly. We had a project in our institute that was followed by the biologists, and that was actually a project on the effects of ballast waters because they have an impact. With
Yeah.
ballast water of ships in Venice, we got, for example, the blue crab, but also we have this invasion of sargasso that
Mm.
starts growing at the end of the winter, and then it becomes like it blocks all the circulation in the small
Yeah.
canals because it is expanding terribly.
Mhm.
And then we also have, when sargasso decline with the coming of the hot season, we have Undaria pinnatifida, which is another species of the Pacific that you find on the coast of California, for example, everywhere. And it came to Venice.
Is this you're talking about like algae,
Yeah,
like
they are algae.
seaweeds?
They
Yeah.
are
Okay.
macroalgae. Luckily for us, they only attach to hard substrates. So they take place in Venice because we have the buildings and the foundations. They attach to the strong to the rocks and
Hmm.
to the stones. And in the lagoon, the sargasso can only attach the talus to some stones that are in the bottom or on shells, for example.
Ah, okay.
But that doesn't make it grow so big because a shell is a
Okay.
tiny portion of the seafloor. Luckily, the rest of the seafloor in the lagoon is extremely soft, so it's
Mm.
not suitable for these algae to expand. Otherwise, that would have been a disaster for the
Of
lagoon.
course, of course. And
Immediately
when you're
close
talking
it.
about what did you call this the water? What is it called from the ships? What's it called? I
The
didn't
ballast water.
ballast water.
So,
Was this?
just to explain, the
Yeah,
ships to balance the weight,
yeah,
they take water in
yes, and
and they fill some tanks to keep
yeah,
an optimal
balance.
balance and
Yeah,
tilting of the ship hull.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
When they are in the ports, they are forbidden. They shouldn't release ballast waters because, of course, they have an impact. But
of
not
course.
every ship does that.
Oh, so this was caused by the cruise ships then.
Not
as well?
only, not
Not
only,
not
mostly,
only, but
mostly cargo ships, because the cruise ship has a rather constant buoyancy.
okay.
Apart from the weight of the 3,000 people that can board on the ship, which is a weight
Yeah,
anyway,
of course.
but the buoyancy, their draft doesn't change very much. Instead, cargo ships and tankers, they have a huge change in the draft. They can be from, say, 4 meters up to 11 meters deep. So this huge change is normally compensated with ballast water, and then there is the bilge water, the water that comes in the ship anyway, and needs to be pumped out. But most of the impact, of course, is in the huge amount of water that is released when they.
I never thought. And so maybe, and probably not just crabs, but God knows what other fish came along and what other tiny little animal, bacteria, or
Oh,
whatever we could have
yeah.
got into the lagoon. Oh my God. But wasn't this a problem they would have had also in the past or not?
No, because in the past they didn't use ballast water. The ships were
Ah,
made of
okay.
wood, and there
Okay.
was no way to pump water into the ship.
See, no, okay, that I got. But wouldn't have been that they maybe some, I don't know,
Well,
animal
sure,
crabs
with
would
the
have.
fouling, the fouling under the keels of the ship, the plants and the algae and the animals that attach the ship
Mm.
hull and grows there, they are of course transported everywhere. This was also in the beginning of navigation, but imagine how intense is the traffic today respect to
Yes.
the past.
And also back in the days it took months to travel. Now you can be here in few days. So
In a
that is
few
also
days,
the
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's a big difference in that. So
And then to make everything worse,
yeah.
you get
I thought you
no,
already
no,
told me
I
the
tell you,
worst.
you bring these new animals in a
Yeah,
place, in an environment, because every coastal place is like that,
of
which is
course.
already depleted of the predators.
Of course. Of
So if
course.
you miss predators, these new species coming, of course they uptake, they take place, they get the dominance
Of course.
because they have no competitors.
Yeah. So what's gonna happen with the blue crabs then? Do you think they're gonna eventually
We need to
become
eat
part of a
them.
lagoon
We
or
need to
what?
eat them.
We need to eat them.
We need to eat them. The problem is that it's also not easy to find them because they are not profitable for the fishers. They don't fish
Mm,
them because when they get 50 cents per kilo, that's not
yeah.
even worth the spending a day in the
Yeah,
boat to fish
yeah,
them.
of course, of course, of course. And unfortunately, because of that, all the local crabs, like like the Mohican stuff, are becoming less and less, available because I
Exactly.
saw
Yeah,
this year it
exactly.
was terrible. I don't even know if I had it this October. I saw some fishermen fishing them, that I was a bit surprised, but I didn't see that many on the tables of it.
Well, luckily, some of my colleagues in an institute located in Apulia, they are
Mhm.
doing experiments because soon we will be able to get soft shell crabs with the blue crab, which would be fantastic.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, you got to explain that to the restaurant
So we
people,
have
to
an
the Venetians,
alternative to the
but okay.
Mohican.
Hey, we can always color the the crowd and pretend it's a local one.
Well,
Listen, what role do the local communities play in maintaining this balance with, the environment? What can we, as locals, what can we do?
you need what? You need what? You need people more into the lagoon. I mean, there are a lot of, um, how can I say, stakeholders today.
Mm,
But in the past, the fishermen were reporting daily to the water authority about the conditions of the lagoon.
okay.
Today, we are mostly exploiting the lagoon. We need to be
Mm,
present and keep an eye on it and not just using for our convenience. I
mm,
mean, yeah, there's thousands of boats today in the lagoon, but how many people are taking notes of the changes on the environment, reporting, telling people? There are just a few. This is a minority of the people
mm.
that are
That's
in the lagoon every day.
That's true. That's true. You
Once
see
the
more
lagoon,
and more tourist
yeah,
boats.
exactly.
Yeah. And I thought, when we went out together a few weeks ago, it was really interesting. Well, you were on another boat, but according to the boats that I was with, it was very interesting because one of the captain, I don't know, it wasn't the day I was with you, it was on another day. We were going along, and all of a sudden, I think he noticed a broken bricola or something like that in the middle of a lagoon or something, and he stopped the boat, immediately made a phone call to report it to wherever he had to report it. And I thought, oh, okay. It was strange for me. And he said, oh, no, that's what you have to do if you drive a boat here in Venice. It's something, when you go around, things like this, you need to tell. Or if there is a boat that is underwater, because that's another thing. We were passing and we saw a boat that was capsized and stuff like that. I think maybe because there is more and more tourist boats, even driven by tourists.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know about this. They wouldn't know that you have to make these kind of calls and stuff. So what's your favorite place in Venice that reflects its environment or the cultural essence?
My favorite place, I would say, is a place that let me see Venice from outside. I mean, Venice is beautiful when you are in the city, but when you have a chance to sit at sunset in an island
Oh, yes.
facing Venice,
Mm-hmm.
like for example, Sant'Erasmo is. I
Mm.
love Sant'Erasmo. I really
Mm-hmm.
love it.
I
It's
love it too.
so relaxing. And once you sit on the beach there, remember it's a fossil beach. It used to be a barrier island. Now it's inside the lagoon because of the transformations we made at the inlets. But
Uh-huh.
still, when I sit there and I think to the old cargo ships entering with such so many difficulties in such a narrow and shallow channel that was the Lido Inlet in the past, and wrecking maybe over the sandbars in front of the entrance, and thinking about the past and watching the present Venice at sunset, that makes me, that's so inspiring. That's my favorite spot. It wasn't the same in the past, but now that I am, once you get old, you understand the
You get
importance of,
vintage. You don't get old. You get
well,
vintage.
yeah, yeah.
You
When you
don't
get
get old.
mature,
Yeah,
you
exactly. That's the
understand.
word, mature.
Yeah, when you understand the importance of history. So
Yes.
I started from a scientific background, but now I'm more into history also. And when you take the two things together, that tells you a lot about the world.
Mm.
We are, why we are like this. Why is Venice like this?
Mm.
So
It's incredible. I think every time I walk in Venice, if I'm on my own, I'm thinking, how the heck did they manage to build a city on water that still stands? That's what's amazing. For me, I think one of my favorite is a new place, Palestrina. I have to thank you for that. When we did it a few weeks ago, riding along, but I never realized how long it is. It was really mind blowing. I thought, oh my God, I totally discovered another Venice, even though
right.
the Venetian probably say, no, Palestrina is Palestrina, Venice is Venice, but it's still Venice. It's amazing. It is a beautiful island. I think it's one way to get an idea what Venice looked like. Maybe three,
Yeah.
400 years ago. It is amazing to walk along the beach and stuff. That's incredible. Anyway, Luca, thank you so much for this beautiful chat to give us this insight of on the Lagoon of Venice. One last thing. What can the listeners and visitors, how can they contribute to preserve Venice for the future generations, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, when they come to Venice, they just have to stay longer.
Bravo.
We all encourage people to stay longer, enjoy the place, leave the place like a Venetian, and just trying to walk in the evening, but also on early morning, and trying to feel the mood of the past. So this city was vibrant centuries ago, but I still feel that the voices of these merchants, workers, all the people around the industry of shipping, I still feel them, especially when there's not so much people in the city, early morning, late night. It's like the ghost of these people are still, floating around.
Yes, yes,
That's the
yes.
best way.
I,
Enjoy
I, I
in
always
your
say to
calm time.
people that once I had this experience where by mistake I put my hand on a wall. I was just walking in a small little alleyway. I put my hand on the wall, and all of a sudden it was like if I was like, "Oh gosh, I've been here before in my life. My life before this, I'm 100% sure I was here before as something else." It was that weird feeling, you get. Luca, where can people follow you or see you or do you do experiences? Do you do things for tourists?
Very often I work with tourists. They call me and I don't know, for some reason they know me.
Okay.
So sometimes I was searching for a person to have an experience on the ecology of the Lagoon of Venice, and I was asking, they told me, "Oh, call Luca Zaggia." That's surprising because how do
Hey, they saw you on my blog. I saw you on my blog. That's why.
probably that was helping a lot. Yeah, maybe. But anyway, after a few years of, the voice is spreading. So yeah, I
Yeah,
do very often, even though I have to do it on weekends because
yeah,
this is
of
not
course. You
my
got job.
main activity. My job is doing research, but still,
And
I
you're
love,
always on TV and you're going all over
well,
the world for conferences and
anyway,
lectures.
yeah.
You see, if you
Well,
if people write Luca Zaggia on internet,
yeah, they found a
go,
few.
there's thousands of videos of you doing
Find a few
interviews.
videos, yeah. And also this documentary with National Geographic, that
Yeah.
was quite important, yeah, because many
Mm,
more people knew that there is this person working in
mm.
Venice.
So where can they find you? Have you got a website?
Well, people can eventually contact me on the institutional website. We have the Institute of Geoscience and Earth Resources has an institutional website. There
Okay.
are my contacts there, right?
Okay.
I would
I'll
stay
I'll,
on
po-
that.
I'll post them also on at the end of the podcast then, so
Yeah.
then people can find you. Are you on social medias like Instagram maybe or
I am
something?
on Facebook with my
You're on
name,
Facebook.
and yeah, that's the only social. And recently, I'm not using them very much because they make me a little sad because they're
Oh,
always reporting news about this terrible situation that we have internationally. So
yeah.
I
I
don't
get,
use
I
it
get
very
it.
much.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're
Still,
absolutely right.
my phone is flooded with news. I have
Yeah.
to get But anyway, yes, sometimes I also check the socials. I'm also on WhatsApp.
Okay, listen, Luca, it was really lovely talking to you. I know we just finished working together a few weeks ago and then it was fun. And I hope we're going to do some more stuff
Well,
together
sure, I look
because
forward.
I had a great time last time with you. And every time I speak to you, I discover so many things. And I'm pretty sure that I'm going to ask you to come for the next season with some more questions. I'm pretty sure I'll come up with some
Sure,
idea to ask
sure.
you.
Would be
I'll
happy.
let you go now because you're not very busy. And thank you again for talking to us. Ciao,
Yeah,
ciao.
thank you very much. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you again, Luca, for this wonderful chat about the Lagoon of Venice. You can find Luca Zaggia on Facebook or you can follow him on the CNR Institute website. Thank you again for listening. Venice Talks podcast is a production of Sentire Media, created, produced, and hosted by me, Monica Cesarato. Follow Venice Talks wherever you get your podcast, and if you want to book a food tour or a cooking experience with me, you can find me over at www.monicacesarato.com and on all social medias with the handle @monicacesarato, where you can follow my adventures around Venice. And don't forget, if you love this episode, please rate it and leave a review. It's very much appreciated.
Sentire Media.
Hey, podcast producers and show hosts. Do you want to join a podcast network that celebrates all things Italian? At Sentire Media, we understand the allure of Italy and its unique culture. Our devoted team of hosts and producers are all driven by their shared passion for Italy. And we work tirelessly to create the best lifestyle podcasts and content that will whisk you away to the very heart of Italy. With us, you can savor the mouth-watering flavors, get lost in the stories from the past, break down the cultural barriers, and truly immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of this intoxicating country. If you have a great podcast idea or are already in production and would like to join Sentire Media, head over to sentiremedia.com, that's SENTIRE media.com, and find out how to submit your show.